Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Stroke Warrior Radio. I'm your host, Ralph Cortese. Today, we're joined by Kelly Tuttle, a neurology nurse practitioner, brain injury survivor, and a creator of the book Road to Recovery: Return to Work and Life After a Brain Injury. She blends her recovery experience with her professional expertise to help survivors rebuild their lives. She's here today to share her journey, her work, and her insights for brain injury and stroke survivors navigating the road back to health, confidence, and purpose. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Ralph. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm glad you responded. I'm excited to hear more. Let's start with your life before your injury. What was your work and day-to-day life like?
Oh, I was always on the go, and I was working 40 plus hours a week with a 2 hour commute to work and back, 1 hour there, 1 hour back.
Wow,
Mom of small children, martial arts practitioner. I was training for my third degree black belt in karate and my purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I loved volunteering and I taught on Fridays basic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to women.
cool.
And I'd also been involved with the California Association of Nurse Practitioners and was at one point for 3 years a involved in the presidential position for the Sacramento area.
Very nice. You're pretty active. And you
Yes,
said two
yes,
children?
2 children.
So that added to the activities, I'm sure. Okay. Well, walk us through the event or injury that led to your brain injury. What were you doing at the time and how was it diagnosed? What do you remember about the early days, I guess?
Okay. So my story begins with a thunderous clap of metal, the shattering of glass. I was driving down a rural road when another car pulled out in front of me, and I ended up T-boating them. And ambulances were called, traffic was stopped, and I knew I had been in a really bad car accident, but I decided to decline going by ambulance to the emergency room because I used to be an emergency room nurse and I didn't want to be.
Oh,
I didn't
they
want to
say
go
nurses and doctors make the worst patients, right?
Yes, and so I knew what was, install that would happen if I went by ambulance. I didn't really want to go through that. Not smart. I do not recommend that for your listeners. But I thought, I'll just shake off the scratch. And I went to work the next day, and my colleagues who are registered nurses and nurse practitioners noticed that I wasn't speaking right and my behavior had changed. And they said, no, you need to see your regular doctor tomorrow and get care. And I said, okay. And I did the next day and was diagnosed with a concussion. And my doctor took me off work for 2 weeks. And I left thinking that after 2 weeks, I'd be okay. I'd be fine. So I go back to life. I try to go back to my martial arts training. I'm working, being a mom, trying to do all the things despite headaches, neck pain. I had some, a chest contusion from the airbags and seatbelt. And then about 2 to 3 months afterwards, maybe it was about 2 months. I'm sorry, I can't remember. I fell asleep at the wheel while driving home. And yeah, and so I thought, and I woke up when my car bounced off the side of the road and was able to slam on the brake before my car collided with a tree. And this is how well my concussed brain was working. I decided not to tell my doctor, which I don't recommend again for your listeners. And I decided I would just take a nap on the side of the road in between work and home. Yes, not a not a good idea at all. Not a recommendation I'm making to anyone today.
You're you're
And
you're one of the nurses that makes the worst patient I've ever heard
yes,
of.
yes, I am a terrible patient. And so then shortly after that, I had lunch with a colleague who at the time was a neurology nurse practitioner. I was a cardiology nurse practitioner for 20 years before this car accident. And she was curious about my recovery because she knew I'd had a concussion. And I told her, oh, symptom, symptom, symptom. And then I fell asleep at the wheel. But that's okay because now I'm just taking a nap in between work and home. And she's like, no, it's not okay. And she said, you need to see a physical medicine rehab doctor, which is, they're also known as physiatrists, and they treat brain and spinal injuries. And I didn't know, I wasn't aware of them before that time. And you need to have a brain scan. I hadn't had a brain scan.
Really?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Even a regular doctor didn't order that?
No.
Oh,
Yeah. My regular doctor really dropped the ball and kind of made things worse.
yeah.
So then I go back to my regular doctor and I ask for these referrals and I get the runaround. I get sent to mental health, um, told I have my doctor said I had anxiety. The person I saw in mental health said, no, you don't. You have a concussion. And and so a lot of runaround. The brain CT came back negative, and but I did get my referral to the physical medicine rehab doctor at the time. And once I saw her, she recognized right away that I had a mild to moderate concussion at the time and started referring me to speech therapy, physical therapy, neurotherapy. And from that point on, I started getting onto the right road of recovery.
Great. And how long did that take?
Um, I would say about 3 to 4 months.
Wow. So
And
many
then,
things could have gone wrong in between, right?
yes, yes. And she also took me off work for 3 months to kind of get those therapies under and heal and rest and all that stuff because I never rested after my concussion. I was on the go. I was trying to exercise and it was serious craziness.
Yeah, sounds like it. How did your medical training and background influence your original approach to your recovery?
Well, my background at the time had been cardiology. So
Right.
my extent of the brain was strokes, preventing strokes. And I didn't have experience taking care of stroke patients. So
Okay.
very minimal, very isolated, very niched in my spot. But while I was trying to recover, I started to learn about the brain and concussions, traumatic brain injuries, and all the things. Trying to get better, reading books, websites, going on websites, trying to figure out how to get better as fast as I could so I could get back to work. Because at the time, I was a single income earner and benefit earner for my family. So going back to work was not an option. It was an
Hmm.
expectation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all I wanted to do. And then at the time too, I could only read for like 5 to 10 minutes before I started getting dizzy, headaches, couldn't remember what I read. So reading was really limited. I was very thankful for anything that was on Audible books at the time. And I had a friend call me up, and she said, "Hey, how you doing? How are things progressing?" And I said, "Oh yeah, they're slowly getting better. And I've been reading all this stuff about the brain. I love it. Very passionate." And she goes, "You should go into neurology because you would be a really good provider." And I was like, "That's a great idea." And so I spent the next 2 years studying, reading, taking continuing ed classes and begging and pleading until I finally found a trainee position and got hired as a
Awesome.
neurology nurse practitioner. And that took me about 2 years to get to that point.
Nice. Well, let's get back to the injury. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in your recovery, both physically and mentally?
Oh,
I
well,
mean, it's kind of hard for me to understand. You've gone through this 3 to 6 month period where you're not really in recovery, you're not really seeing doctors or anything, and then all of a sudden you're back into, what's necessary to fix you. I mean, what kind of challenges was that for you?
well, I had horrible headaches, pretty much most days of the week for the next 4 years.
Hmm.
I had horrible whiplash that took me 2 years to finally get the pain under control. And I had memory issues, so I would read my patient's chart, and I used to be able to read it and then go in the room and remember everything. And I was forgetting it by the time I got to the patient's door. And so I compensated by writing everything down and having a piece of paper and keeping it in my pocket. The fatigue was the worst, and that's what it ended up having me fall asleep at the wheel. I had neurofatigue, which, as you know, but your listeners may not know, is different from regular fatigue because it comes on with minimal activity, and rest and breaks are not restorative. So someone who's had a brain injury, whether it's concussion, stroke, maybe they have Parkinson's, maybe they've had carbon monoxide poisoning, brain surgery, all kinds of ways that the brain can be injured, infection. Um, you can develop from that brain damage, neurofatigue, and it is just unbelievable, relentless fatigue that even if you get really good sleep at night, you still wake up tired. So brain injury survivors often feel like they have old cellular phone batteries that when they go to sleep, instead of their battery being recharged to 100%, maybe it's only 25% or 30%. And then that's all the energy they have for the whole day.
Yeah.
And it's really important to learn how to manage that amount of energy you have. Otherwise, you're gonna crash. You're gonna fall asleep at the wheel. You're gonna fall asleep while eating. Um, so it's a serious thing for some individuals, and that was like the biggest symptom, and it still is something that affects me today.
Yeah, me too. Even 9.5 years later, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
Yes.
And you go take a nap and it's like you work 24 hours straight. It's still not there. So,
Yeah.
but it's gotten better. I have to say that to not make anybody scared. It does get better if you practice certain things. I had to learn, for example, first time I started this work at the running a storage facility, I spent a whole day doing yard work. I was laid up for 3 days. It just wiped me out. So now I have limits. I even set my alarms. 2 hours of
Yeah.
this, 2 hours of inside, 2 hours of, so that there are tools out there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that um, later. But at what point did you realize you wanted to turn your experience into a resource for others? What was that aha moment?
It was during that time when I was off for the 3 months, 2 weeks prior to having to return to work. I was freaking out. I was like, how am I going to support my brain? What does my brain need to make it through the workday so I can be a good nurse practitioner and efficient employee? And it was a struggle finding those tools and strategies, even though I had been given plenty of things from my speech therapy, physical therapy, neurotherapist. Um, and I didn't want anybody else to go through that. And at the time, as I said, I only had the cognitive stamina of about 5 to 10 minutes learning something new. So my researching and efforts really limited. And I didn't want anybody else to go through that. So I decided when I wrote a book that I would write a book that specifically had the strategies and tools I used to help support my brain at work and any new stuff that I'd learned along the way that from other occupational therapists and speech therapists and so forth research articles. And I wanted it all in one book that was super easy to read, easy on the eyes, plenty of breaks to rest and set the book down. And I wanted it to be on Audible. So if people did have difficulty with reading and memory like I did, they could listen to the book and not have to read it.
Very nice. So that's the start of Road to Recovery. What inspired that design?
Well, the book, of course. So the book is titled After the Crash: How to Keep
Right.
Your Job, Stay in School, and Live Life After a Brain Injury. And I also wanted to create an online program, The Road to Recovery, which is more niche down to the person who has a mild concussion or that wants to go back to work. And so it's really more in depth in that area than and not so much generalized, kind of like the book is. And I wanted the program to be self-paced so you can stop and rest. I wanted it to be a lifetime membership. Once you purchased it, you would get the content as long as it was alive. And I wanted the videos to be super, super short. And then I have a bunch of PDF downloads at the end of each video that I created as reminders of what you watched in the video if you want to take that and put it by your desk at work or something like that to help remind you of the new things you might want to try to support your brain while you're at work.
Cool. What are the main pillars of that program? How do they help survivors prepare for returning to work or school or what their new normal?
So my both book and the program, I have 5 pillars of recovery. And one of them is exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, sleep, and financial wellness.
Not too many people mention that. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's pretty cool. How did you blend neuroscience, symptom management, and mindset, and what you're doing with your program?
It was a bunch of trial and error with my own recovery and finding out what worked best for me and blending it with new things that I would learn from research, brain injury websites, from podcasts that like yours that educate people about their brain and YouTube videos. And that's just kind of how I kind of just blended it all together. And the mindset thing is a really good question because I think I came into this with a good mindset. So there's growth mindset, and then there's uh, mindset where you don't grow. And in growth mindset, you're constantly trying to improve yourself, getting to know your values, your passions, and trying to make things better. And that can be done by doing baby steps. And with growth mindset, you develop resilience to tragedies and challenges that you overcome. And if you don't have a growth mindset, you can get stuck, stuck at the time of the accident, stuck about, well, I used to be this and I used to be able to do that. And then you don't move beyond that and you stay in the past with regret. Um, so it is important to have a positive growth mindset in along with your recovery. And to tap into that, you can practice mindfulness. Um, and mindfulness is just kind of being in the present moment, taking deep breaths, being aware of your body, paying attention to your environment. And that helps brain injury survivors get out of our heads because we like to stay in our heads. We get stuck in
Hmm.
there. And what's in our heads? Dumb thoughts and negative Nancy's, right? So
Right.
and bullies, mean bullies. We need to get out of there. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
can just sit there and cycle and spin with those, and that can increase your risk of developing anxiety or depression or even suicidal ideation. So it's very important for brain injury survivors to get out of their heads, and you can do that with the practice of mindfulness.
What advice do you usually give survivors that you learned for yourself, who feel overwhelmed by symptoms or setbacks?
I recommend journaling your recovery, and if you can do it from day one, do it. If you can't, ask someone to journal for you, because your journal is becomes your companion. It's your safe space to put all your thoughts in and to reflect on if strategies or therapies work. It helps you get in touch with your symptoms so that you know what triggers them, and then you can help develop strategies to limit the effects of triggers. Um, and they, I also recommend journaling in a notebook with your favorite pen, because the movement of your hand as you're writing helps with neuroplasticity, the rewiring of your brain. So I'm a big proponent of journaling because it's your buddy. You can read it. You can go back to the beginning and read and see how far you have come on those
Exactly.
days that you're frustrated, angry, or sad.
Yeah, exactly. I actually have two. I've got a regular day journal and I've got an anger journal.
Oh,
I,
nice.
yeah, I get in there and I curse and everything on everything I'm writing down and talk about people and everything. But it helps relax me because before
Yes.
my stroke, I had a real bad temper and no patience whatsoever. Now it's relaxed. So I learned from my stroke forward to keep getting those negative thoughts out. And now hardly anybody bothers me.
Yes,
Ex-
exactly. If they do, you go to your journal and no one hears about it but your journal.
That's it. That's it. You
And
know,
I and I do recommend, like, once someone has healed enough to return to work, that they have a separate journal. So you have your regular daily journal and your anger journal. I recommend a healing journal, recovery journal, and a work journal. So
exactly.
in your work journal, you're going to put um, important information. You got to remember date and time and all that stuff, conversations, so you can look back on them if you need to. It's going to be your external memory until your memory becomes more reliable. And you can staple in work emails to keep track of dates, time, and information, meeting minutes, and so forth. And things that you can't remember, maybe a password or a word that you can't remember to spell. All that stuff can go into your work journal, and it helps kind of keep your things that you need to get accomplished at work to-do lists in the work journal, and then your home personal things in your recovery journal, like grocery lists, bills, and so forth.
What other tools do you recommend other than the journaling to track progress? Do you have anything else you use?
To track progress, um, I don't think that I do,
Okay.
other than the journal and then my own memory.
Well, and your therapist, I'm sure you do monthly or 6 month, yearly evaluations. Those are some things that I use anyway. I do go to the doctor annually now, all those kind of things. So that's another thing where I see my progress. Because I'll even walk in and the doctors say, wow, you're walking. What's going on? That kind of stuff.
That's
Um,
definitely an excellent resource.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What common mistakes do you see survivors make when trying to return to work too soon, and how can they avoid them?
Yeah. So, well, a couple of my mistakes, falling asleep at the wheel.
Not going to the emergency room?
Yeah. And well, I think that one of them is with the neuro fatigue, you only have so much energy to get through the day, correct? But early in your recovery, you have to do these physical therapy exercises, visual exercises, speech therapy exercises. All those take energy. So before returning to work, you want to make sure that those you have the energy and the time to do those therapies, and then the amount of energy to go back to work. So you don't want to go back to work and then be too exhausted to work on your therapies and recover. And that's what happened with me.
Yeah,
So that's one thing. And there's multiple ways also to return to work. And you can ask me about that later. Uh, the other thing is not knowing your symptoms. So if you don't know your symptoms and you go back to work and you don't realize you have sound sensitivity, light sensitivity, difficulty with focus and attention, you're going to be quicker to getting anxious, angry, mad, maybe snap at somebody, maybe forget something important. And people are wondering, what is wrong with Kelly? She is
yeah.
weird. I told her this and she doesn't even remember. Or I went to up to her desk to ask her something. She snapped at me. So you don't want to be making those mistakes. You've got
Then
to
you
know
get
you,
fired.
yeah, you'll get fired. You've got to know your symptoms, know the strategies that help limit the triggers, and have your coping mechanisms in place to deal with your triggers, and learn every day while you're at work. How did the day go? How can I make it better the next day? And that's again, you're going back to your journaling.
Yep. And it's those small victories. My tagline is catch the wave, warriors achieving victory every day. So, I mean,
Yes,
you got to remember the little ones because they become bigger and bigger. It took
yes.
6.5 years to get off the cane, but, every day was better. So that's just something I learned anyway. How did you and do you now address the emotional side of recovery, including, fear, anxiety, loss of identity? There's so many things that we go through. Like I told you before we started, but I used to go to sleep at night or get in bed at night and wonder if I was going to wake up in the morning for so long. You know, that fear created an urgency of me to do too much.
Right. Yeah, I went through a lot. It was really dark in the beginning. And I even at one point had suicidal ideation. Um, I
Twice for
had,
me.
yeah, and impulsivity issues where I would drive dangerously because I was angry.
Really?
And that, yeah, that put me in danger. Um, but what helped me with that was again the journaling, exercise. Exercise helps work out that negative energy, anxiety, helps with mood modulation. Made sure I got enough sleep at night. That helps with mood modulation and dealing with stressful thoughts. And I got talk therapy, and I had supportive friends and family members. And I went to a support group, which was helpful. I only went a few times, but it made a huge impact. The only reason why I didn't go more is because the group met an hour away from my house late at
Oh.
night, and I was just too tired to drive out there, attend, and then come back and then go back to work the next day.
And that, again, for me anyway, was so important finding other survivors. It just changed the whole perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I constantly tell people who talk to me or send me messages on social media, find your tribe, hang out with me, but find your tribe.
I like that. Find your tribe. Um, yeah, one of the interesting pillars that you mentioned was financial. What do you mean by that? I'm
So
curious.
it encompasses not only protecting your job, but also protecting your finances and then your future planning, your financial future planning. So protecting your job is knowing your rights. So knowing the American Disabilities Act. Um, if you're a union employee, contact your union rep and have them help you navigate your return to work and accommodations if necessary.
I'd never heard
Uh,
that about unions. That's a great point.
yes, yes. And I talk about utilization of Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, because you can take with FMLA, you can take a block of time off. A lot of people know that, but a lot of people don't know is that you can take intermittent family leave. And what that is it could be 0 to 2 days a month that you will take off to attend your physical therapy, your acupuncturist, your talk therapy, all that, all the things while you're recovering. So you can protect that time that you need to take off to do those things.
Oh, that's great knowledge. Um, what you
Oh,
mentioned, what, go ahead.
the other issue with the financial, which is really important, is the impulsivity that can happen after a brain injury, which leads to impulse buying. And
Yes.
I myself had that problem. And I also had a patient that had that problem. And so, what I recommend is, what I recommend when you first have a brain injury is to cut your finances back to the minimum because you don't know how long it may take you to get to work, back to work to your full hours. You also don't, there's also a delay when it comes to disability checks. So the money coming in and out is really uncertain during that time. So cut your finances down to the minimum. Get rid of gym memberships, magazine subscriptions, any subscriptions that you can live without, and remove your credit card off of internet pay apps such as PayPal, Venmo, Amazon, anything that is really easy to buy from, like buy now, click and buy. Take that all off so that when you're shopping and you want to buy something, you actually have to get up and go get your credit card to buy
Think
it. And
about it.
that
Yeah.
it'll give you a little bit of a break, like, do I really need this? Do I really have the money? And then paying bills is really hard after a brain injury. So you have
Sure.
issues with poor motivation or initiation, um, organization, being able to see the big picture, memory, math, all that stuff. So the person may not initially be able to handle the bills. Like I was the bill payer. And what I did was I would get overwhelmed and I would take my bills and put them in a grocery bag and then tuck that away. Terrible.
Out of
It's
sight, out of
terrible.
mind, right?
Out of sight, out of mind. So if you are having a hard time paying your bills, then that means you're paying fees, late fees, your credit scores getting hammered, and things are going to accumulate and get out of hand. So it's really right at the beginning, the injury happens. Get those finances in line, even though it's the last thing you want to do because you're so tired and you probably have a headache. To get those under control, and that will help support your healing because you won't be worried about bills and money as much. And then there's also the unknown costs of uh, uh, copays when you go in to see a doctor, out of pocket costs. Like my acupuncture therapy was $75 each hit, and it was not covered by my insurance. So I had to pay out of pocket for that. I had to buy a new car. Um, you know,
Yeah.
um, and I went from not having a car payment to having a car payment. Um, when I transitioned from my job, I went from cardiology to neurology, but it was in a job that was closer to home to decrease the commute. But I lost like 10% of my pay because of the change in my position. And so that
Okay.
was a cut. And so there, it's like your finances really take all these small cuts. So if you can prevent some of them, then you can make sure that you maintain your bills and you're able to keep your home and groceries on the table.
A big question a lot of people are, and I guess it was a question for me too, is because of the cognitive issues. You don't know who to go to. You don't know how to go to find somebody to deal with all of this. I find, in my example, I found the information number 211, told them what was going on in my life. They referred me to Medicaid, Medicare, um, therapy, food stamps, whatever at the time. So there's a bunch of information out there, and I had shame in going out and asking for that kind of stuff, but I needed it.
Yeah.
I was my own contractor. I needed to do that. So I mean, don't be ashamed of doing it. It's got to be done.
Yes,
I
exactly. And then there's also financial planners. So consult a financial planner. Make sure you may be looking at an early retirement like me. I couldn't
right.
keep up with the workload at work, and so I retired early. Um, and or you may be looking at only working part-time or just doing temporary work or holiday work and then taking time off, that kind of work, which is different maybe from your full-time work. There's also money coaches out there that you can find on the internet who can help. They help you with your budget. So they help you with all your bills and your budget and put together something that works for you. And
Who
they
is
can
that again?
a money coach.
Okay. Wow. I never heard of that.
I didn't either until I ran across one, and she helped me put together a budget and helped me further tighten up limiting money going out of the household that was not intentional.
I'm impressed with everything you've learned came from self-advocacy. And a lot of us don't learn that for a long time. How long did that take? Did that come from your upbringing? I mean, I'm just impressed with it. You've went out there and challenged all the information and gathered it all. So how does that work for you?
I don't know. I just was kind of just raised that way. Like my parents were like, figure it out and don't give up.
Yeah. Well, and that it's important to communicate too. We have to be captains of our own team. If you're not self-advocating, you're going to be in trouble.
Right. And then be comfortable with asking for help. So there's a Japanese proverb that says the warrior falls down 7 times but stands up 8. And and I think that that really speaks to self-resilience. But I also it makes me think, well, did that warrior really stand up on his own or did his comrades help him back up?
I
So don't
like that.
forget your comrades.
Yep. Um, make it a little fun to finish up here. Well, what's your mission now in supporting other stroke survivors or TBI survivors?
My mission is anybody who has a brain injury is able, if they um, want to learn more about their brain, want to return to work, um, want to, cope with their symptoms, that they have the information they need all in what, it, not necessarily all in one place because my information isn't all inclusive, but I do want I did create the book, like I said, the online program. I also created a journal to help people learn how to journal. And this is a specific for brain injury survivors. And inside of it, it has, you don't even have, you can write or draw pictures, but it has like a mood tracker. It has prompts like how much sleep did you get the night before? Is today a good brain day or a bad brain day? Did you go outside? Did you exercise? Did you practice mindfulness? So really specific to the brain injury survivor. So that's my goal. I just want to help people get better. I want them to know that they're not alone and there is hope.
Wonderful. And how did we find out more about you?
My website is has loads of information. It's at kellytuttle.org. And I also have a YouTube channel, which is Brain Loving Advocate Kelly Tuttle, to check out for more information and content. And I have a
Cool.
Substack. I write
Oh,
for
good.
Substack. Yeah, it's called the Mindful Return. So if you like to read, I always try to make my articles really short. And if you want information, you can find it there.
Awesome. I just a little fun way to end it. What's your favorite recovery tool or strategy?
Oh, I bet you can guess it. Journaling.
A book or podcast you recommend, other than your own, of course.
Um, are you familiar with The Brain That Changes Itself?
Yes,
Yes,
that's a
that book.
lovely program. That is really good. What's your go-to comfort food?
That's a really tough question. It's either a veggie burrito, tortilla chips, um, or pho.
Okay.
Veggie pho.
What's your best relaxation activity?
Being outside, and that could be gardening or walking or going on a hike.
And this is kind of tough to answer because of brain fog and fatigue, but morning person or night person?
Um,
I know we
mid
fight all
in the
through the day.
middle,
Yeah,
in the
right.
middle. Late
Because of the fight.
morning, late evening.
What's your one word to describe your recovery journey?
Um, it would be transformation.
Ooh, good word. First place you'd travel if you can go anywhere tomorrow.
Oh boy. Well, I've been lucky and I've been able to travel to a lot of places. I've been to a lot of countries in Northern Europe and the Baltic states and Iceland and Niagara Falls, Alaska. So I would say the next place would be uh, the UK, Ireland, Scotland, and Greece.
Nice, nice. Kelly, thank you for sharing your journey with us today. To our listeners, remember your story matters, your recovery is worth fighting for, and you're never alone on this path. Catch the wave. You are a warrior achieving victories every day. Bye, Kelly.
Bye.